to our reading through the Bible in a year. I'm just trying to introduce each section to you so you have something to look forward to and something that you could be looking at. We're moving through the book of Numbers, and this book is the transition time in the life of the children of Israel. Remember, it's only been a year since they actually had the Exodus from Egypt. And so here we are a year later, and they have the promise to conquer and take as their own the promised land. But this book becomes a book of divine discipline, showing the painful consequences of unbelief and rebellion. You see, the reason the book is called Numbers is because the Numbers, there's going to be two senses, two numberings, two instructions, because you're going to find that the book contains the records of two generations, two senses, two sets of instruction. You're going to first see the faithless generation, and then you're going to be introduced to the transition to the faithful generation that will actually enter into the land. I mean, God's love is kind, but it can be severe. You see, the old generation, they're organized in the first 10 chapters. But this tragic transition at Kadesh Barnea and Moab in chapters 10 to 25 is going to be a real shocker. Because you're going to find the old generation, they choose to rebel and not believe the very God they saw deliver them. And it's going to be their children. Those who grew up in those 40 years of desert living, they're going to be the ones that will be reorganized as the new generation, the faithful generation, in chapters 26 to 36. So here's what I want you to be looking for. Numbers is the book of wanderings. It has been named because of the two numberings of the Israelites. First at Mount Sinai, and the second on the plains of Moab. Now, Moab is the very gateway into the promised land. I mean, here's what's remarkable. It was only going to be from the foot of Mount Sinai when the first generation received the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments. It was only an 11-day journey, to Moab to enter to the promised land. But something happened to cause that 11-day journey to end up be 40 years. And that's what this book is about. The book has been called the book of Murmurings, the book of complaining, because the people begin to complain. Here in the first 10 chapters, the old generation has witnessed God's miracles of deliverance. Now they receive further directions from God. They're at the foot of Mount Sinai. And the duties of the Kohathites are given. They're to be responsible for the decorations and the most holy things in the sanctuary. The duties of their Gershonites and the Nazarites, well, they're the ones that are responsible to transport the tabernacle with oxen-pulled carts. Then chapter 5, God's going to speak about the purity of the people. He will see in chapter 6 that he introduces the law of the Nazarites. Remember Samson? That if you wanted to make a vow to God and really commit your life to him in total surrender, you could take the vow of a Nazarite, the law of the Nazarites. Well, now, as the people are being prepared to enter into the promised land, you're getting instructions about their new offerings, life of a Levite, and leadership moves from Moses to basically shared leadership of 70 godly men who are going to assist him. Moses' brother and sister joins in the complaining to their own demise. You're going to see the spies are sent out to view the land, and their response is going to be, we can't do that, even with God or without God. It's too tough, except for two of the spies, Caleb and Joshua. Yeah, the same Joshua that the next book is going to be about, who's going to take the leadership after Moses. But because they were so afraid, the people were influenced by such fear. Boys, last year we've seen the power of fear. Well, fear took over because of the other 10 spies who said, they'll destroy us. So after a few more instructions, a man named Korah leads a rebellion against Moses, and he pays dearly for it, and you'll read about that. The point is Canaan, the promised land, is in sight there at Kadesh Barnea, and the people bail out in unbelief. And the rebellion at Kadesh Barnea marks the pivotal point of the book. And this is where it's going to now transition to a new generation who will be faithful. We'll pick that up next week. But now remember, study to show thyself a workman who need not be ashamed of himself, rightly dividing the word of truth. We'll see you next week.